Hey guys, welcome back to another IGCSE Economics past year walkthrough. This video is for section B of the May-June 2019 paper 2-2, and this is part 1 of section B. I'll be covering question 2, 3, and 4. So stay tuned for part 2 where I'll be doing question 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so these are the questions in section B, and I'll be doing these 3 in this video. Okay, so first question of section B.
The markets for cars and tires are closely related, and the 5 largest firms used to make 66% of all tires. The entry of more than 250 Chinese firms has reduced the global market share of the largest 5 firms to less than 50%. This also changed the price elasticity of demand for individual firms' tire. Some of these firms are state-owned enterprises, and some are in the private sector.
So part A, identify 2 types of business organizations that operate in the private sector. So for this question, it's identifying business organizations that's in the private sector. This could be sole traders, public limited companies, or multinationals. And I found this diagram, so if you're not sure about the categorization of these organizations, you can refer to this and hopefully it helps. And there's also some extra information that you may be interested in. Okay, part B. Explain what effect more firms producing tires would have on the PED of individual firms' tires. So, when more firms are producing tires, it means that there's an increase in the substitutes available for consumers to choose from. So, due to higher competition, for the producers, consumers can look for cheaper alternatives with better quality. So the PED for individuals' firms' tires would therefore be more elastic, since consumers would be more sensitive to a change in price. So yeah, these are the relevant points to get you 4 marks. Part C. Analyze using a demand and supply diagram the effect of an increase in demand for cars on the market for tires. So obviously, they said you need to use demand and supply diagram. So drawing this diagram will give you 4 marks. And make sure to label the y and x-axis. So the y-axis is the price of tires, and the x-axis is the quantity of tires. And then you also have to show the original demand and supply curve. So it's D1 and S. And then label the equilibrium, P1, Q1. And then you have to show the shift, the rightward shift, where there's a D2 here. You can also draw a rightwards arrow, showing that it's a shift. So that's like even clearer. And obviously label the new equilibrium using like P2, Q2. Okay, so an increase in demand for cars and how it affects the market for tires. So higher demand for cars will lead to higher demand for tires, because obviously tires are used to make cars. They are needed to make cars. And that means that they are complements to cars. And this means that the prices for tires will also increase. Okay, part D. Discuss whether a large firm will earn more profit per unit sold than a small firm. So remember, for discuss questions, you have to include both sides of the point. So you have to talk about why large firms may earn more profit per unit than small firms and why they won't. So for why they may make more profit, large firms can take advantage of economies of scale, unlike small firms. So economies of scale tends to occur when large-scale production, where large firms can increase their output and their cost per unit decreases. This could be because their fixed cost is now spread over a larger volume, so there's lower cost per unit. It could also be because they are more productive as their production scale increases. As a result, they can have lower average costs. But large firms may also have funds allocated to advertising, which increases brand loyalty and allows them to increase prices because their loyal customers will still continue purchasing from them. And a very obvious example of this will be Apple, because obviously they have a lot of loyal customers, so they can raise their prices. Okay, so for why large firms may not earn more profit per unit than small firms, it could be because they may have more employees employed, which results in diseconomies of scale, and this leads to higher cost of production. So it kind of backfires. And small firms may also receive subsidies from the government, which lowers their cost per unit. And another reason why large firms may not earn more profit per unit is because the goods produced by the small firms have larger demand. Maybe because there are new products, or the smaller firms are operating in the niche market. So there's higher demand for their products instead of the products produced by the larger firms. So yeah, that's it for this question. Question 3.
There was a global surplus of steel in 2017. In mid-2017, the US government considered imposing tariffs on steel imports to protect its declining steel industry. Cheap imports from other countries were reducing employment in the US steel industry. The pattern of US employment was also being affected by improvements in education.
Okay, part A. Identify 2 methods of trade protection other than tariffs. Okay, so trade protections are the barriers imposed by the government to help domestic firms be more price competitive. This could be through imposing quotas on importing countries to limit the amount of imports that they can import into the country. Or it could be through imposing embargoes, which is to ban certain products from being imported. Or they could simply not trade with certain countries, and this is usually due to like political disputes or political reasons. And furthermore, they could also give subsidies to domestic firms to make them more price competitive compared to those importing firms. Okay, part B. Explain how market forces will eliminate a surplus and a shortage. Okay, so a surplus is when there's excess supply and insufficient demand. To eliminate this, the market forces will reduce prices in order to increase demand, which causes supply to reduce. And for shortages, the market forces will increase prices to reduce demand. And since shortages are caused by excessive demand.
Okay, so I found a really cool website that shows the demand and supply diagram for the shortages and surplus. And so we can illustrate the question using this website. So you can move up the price level, and it will show you how it affects the economy. So when there's excess supply, which is when there's a surplus, you can see that there's a price pressure downwards. And as you go down, the demand is increasing and then the supply is decreasing. And then eventually you will reach the equilibrium, which is when demand equals to supply. And obviously, for the question, it's asking how the market forces will eliminate a surplus and a shortage. So this is a surplus, and to eliminate a surplus, you reduce the price. So the price pressure is going down. And as I said before, the demand increases and supply reduces, and it will reach the market equilibrium here. And when there's excess demand, which is when there's shortages, the price pressure is upwards. So you can increase the price, which will then decrease demand and increase supply. You'll eventually reach the market equilibrium. So yeah, I think this website is a really cool website to just have fun and explore how the economics graph works.
Part C. Analyze how improvements in education can affect the pattern of employment. Okay, so education improvement leads to more skilled workers, so there's more people with higher qualifications, and there may be more people employed in the secondary and tertiary sectors, while there be less people employed in the primary sector, because the secondary and tertiary sector is more towards like services and more advanced stuff, while the primary sector is more like farming or like extraction of raw materials, those kind of jobs. So obviously with education improvement, you will see the population sort of shifting towards the secondary and tertiary sectors. There could also be more women employed because there's like more women educated. This can also increase employment. And with education improvements, there may be more students, which means that you will need more teachers. So there's more teachers employed. Okay, Part D. Discuss whether or not the imposition of import tariffs by a country will reduce its unemployment. As always, for discuss questions, we discuss both sides of the argument. So let's start with why imposing import tariffs will reduce unemployment. So the tariff increases the price of imported goods, so it reduces its price competitiveness. And the demand for imported goods will then decrease, and domestic consumers will choose to buy domestic goods instead if they're cheaper. Tariffs also protects infant industries, which encourages growth of firms in these industries. So more people are employed, and yeah, unemployment reduces. Okay, yeah, that's for this. And imposing import tariffs may increase unemployment if the tariff is placed on raw materials, which increase cost of production. So the price for domestic goods increases, and this reduces its demand. And the firm will then produce lower output and require fewer workers. Hence, it reduces employment. Next one is that the demand for imports may also be price inelastic, so there will be lower demand for domestic products, which leads to an increase in unemployment in the domestic exporting industries. So yeah, that's this point written out.
Okay, question 4. In March 2017, Peru was hit by floods and the strongest winds in decades. Roads, bridges, houses, and capital goods were destroyed. It is expected that the damage caused will affect Peru's Human Development Index and economic growth rate. In 2016, Peru experienced a 4% economic growth rate, which was higher than the growth rate of the USA.
Part A. Define a capital good. So capital good is a good or a human-made good that is used to produce another good or service. An example of this is machineries, and there's also some other examples. Oh, the image is not loading. Okay. Part B. Explain two causes of an increase in a country's Human Development Index. To answer this question, we first need to know what Human Development Index is. And it's basically a measurement of a country's social and economic well-being. So to increase a country's HDI, the average life expectancy of the population should increase, suggesting that they have better healthcare, so people are living better and living longer as well. And the quality of education in the country could also be better, thus increasing individuals' quality of life since they can get better jobs. This could also increase the country's GDP, and it also increases the variety of goods and services people can consume. So yeah. Part C. Analyze using a PPC diagram the effect of a damaging weather on an economy. So for this question, you obviously have to draw the PPC diagram since it's worth 4 marks. So make sure you have to draw it well. The y and x-axis should be labeled with 2 different products or 2 different type of products. So usually we can just put consumer and capital goods. Then we need to show a leftward shift in the PPC curve since damaging weather will reduce the amount of raw materials available. So label the initial and new PPC curve and draw a leftward arrow showing a leftward shift. Now the last 2 marks is for written analysis. We can first explain that poor weather will reduce the yield of raw materials, which will then decrease the output that can be produced. So yeah, that's the 6 marks for this question. Part D. Discuss whether countries with high GDP per head will have a faster rate of economic growth than countries with low GDP per head. So once again, we will discuss both sides of the question. So for why countries with high GDP per head may have faster economic growth rate, it may be because that they are more productive. So they have lower production costs and exports will be cheaper. And people in countries with high GDP per head may also have higher incomes, so they're more likely to spend more, and firms will produce more as well, leading to economic growth. And alternatively, countries with high GDP per head may not have a faster rate of economic growth compared to those with low GDP per head. This may be because economic growth could be influenced by other factors such as the type of government policy implemented. For example, expansionary fiscal policy could be used to stimulate economic growth. So the growth is actually not because of the country having higher GDP per head. And high GDP per head countries may also have a decreasing population or decreasing population growth rate. So they are less able to increase the production of goods. So yeah. Okay, the last point is that countries with low GDP per head may discover rare raw materials and they can export them. So this is why low GDP per head countries may have faster economic growth. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful.